remember that I went off. I started talking about the my experience in the military and how that can be translated into understanding the military industrial complex as an individual, downloaded as an individual that gets amplified just not by or installed not into just soldiers but into the entire community. Uh, how we download how we download the ideas that get pumped out to us um, subconsciously. We output them consciously, and we share them out. So a lot of like easy example would be like the very like disciplined parents like that would discipline them so much that they actually turn their household into a military feel, kind of their military parents pretty much. Not saying that there's anything wrong with any one of any kind of raising your kids or anything. I'm just expanding upon um, observations from actually being inside of these experiences and having come out to understand a bigger picture than the ones that we get caught in, like those picture books, the flip books that we get caught in without even realizing it. So yeah, the first thing they do is when you go into the military, they cut your hair off. So they're cutting your crown off. They're cutting uh, your antenna, your what your artistic naturalness that is part of differentiating you from the next person. Naturally, um, they want to change that, and they want to take that and make you look like everybody else. You're a bald head, bald head, bald head, bald head, bald head, bald head. They just see all of these. When you're in that drill sergeant mode, then your only family is your bald head to the left and your bald head to the right. So it's an abusive mentality. It's an abusive structure that gets maintained as, this is good. So it's break you down as far as you go. And one thing that doesn't get talked about a lot is the suicide rates inside the military, specifically inside basic or what it used to be. It's probably the same now as it was how many years ago? 15 years ago when I first went in. But we used to hear about it all the time. People hanging themselves, people doing all kinds of stuff. Because they're not alive anymore. They're living dead pretty much. You're a zombie. So that's the mentality of it all. When they cut your ear off, when they do all this, and they start installing destructive mentalities. Right? You have to be a warrior. You have to be somebody that will die for these ideas. So that's what all this signing your contract is. Signing your life away. Signing your blood. Giving your blood to an idea, to a destructive intelligence. So this destructive intelligence thrives off of war, separation, and the creative intelligence is based on art, harmony, and connection, peace. So we get caught up in one because that's the only one that gets pumped out. The art of war gets talked about. All this stuff is because it's in defense. But the other hand of that if you amplify this book, which is mostly the it's a total imbalance from an individual state to a national and planetary scale. Um, so just as Obama can say that Syria started when Bashar al-Assad started, you know, killing his own people and all this, and just even the idea of, you know, how these stories get projected out there, how they get told to the massive population, there's really no, like, these groups of war profiteers, these groups of warriors, they get created. They get created by people who survive off the blood of war, and it just keeps going on with itself. And if you have enough power and you have enough arm reach, so like military bases are arms reach. That's what military bases are. They put this anchor here, so they don't have to reach from here. They can reach from there, and they can, you know, either actually reach out, or they can keep their hand out, which is the fear mentality, and say, oh, we can get there real quickly. We can do this real quickly. This is what the stronghold of Hawaii is. The stronghold of Guam, and military bases in Japan, and military bases in Korea, military bases all over. Why we went into Iraq, and what sparked Iraq, and so, like, that goes back to Syria. So, like, the creation of ISIS and all these other destructive groups has a destructive intelligence that started it, that created it, and they created it to watch it and adjust their program as they go, and fit it into the system. So once you have enough arms to reach out far enough, you don't have to actually do a lot, because people are already fear you a lot. People are already seeing how far the lengths you would go to maintain an idea, not only on a destroying of a planet, but a destroying of its people. And there's no saying anything otherwise. If you can't say, if you try to say anything peaceful or counter to the military-industrial complex, you're already labeled as ... whatever it is. So that's where the other side of the community, which is the artistic, creative space, the imagination, the human connections, we fall subject to this on a subtler scales in the family environment and on the interactive scene. So we find ourselves not even realizing the military installations of the education system, the way parents raise their children, the way like workplace environments are set up, the way the political scene is set up, and what they tell you is important. So I want to go back to like how things get created. So Syria links straight back to Iraq and what happened in there, and then like it's just like start a fire and then maintain those fires. That's what goes on with the military industrial complex and the art of war. Now the art of peace is a different um, space we don't even hear about. We don't even understand as existing because we're not supposed to. You know, you're in a patriarchal system, in a colonized mind. You're supposed to just focus on defending yourself against an idea when really you can amplify and empower yourself, which is a self-defense to ideas. But we get caught up in realizing, or caught up in the ego of it all, of really engaging and doing certain things when actually not doing things that are destructive is actually one of the deepest things that you could do to remove the destructive programs from your equation, from which inherently does it for the collective equations and your family. So if one person changes, it's just like a wave of change that happens, and that can't happen on a national scale or anything when you have politicians or puppeteers and puppets that are telling you, oh well, change looks like this, you know, change feels like this and acts like this. It's a structure where we don't need. That structure is for condos and coffee shops and dog parks and ideas of human experience that are not universal. They are for a specific design. So back to the separation. So separating. So in the military, when you go into basic training, you get instead of separation, they want to family you up. So they cut you down, cut your hair off, make you all wear the same clothes, act the same way, say the same things, repeat, remember, and then you become a family with your soldiers that are with your crew in your platoon, in your company, in your battalion, in your brigade on out, and then they keep the ones that they can keep, and then they get rid of the ones that they can't control. And they do this by allowing destructive patterns like just the alcohol and the drugs, and it's all part of the program itself, because those are just side effects to being dominated and controlled in the first place. To have that abusive mentality installed in the beginning of your military career, you just get used to it and then kind of like roll within the fire as your career goes on. So once I started to see that, because I was constantly fighting that fire with my own fire, and doing what I needed to do while I was in that contract, because I understood the depths of that. I signed the contract, so I'm gonna do what I gotta do while I'm in there, as far as being a part of that system and being, with my friends, with my new family. And then when it's time to go, then it's time to go. So that's what I did. I left out of there. Now I can see how that program is no different than the education system. How the basic training is no different than, or the elementary school and high school and college is no different than the basic training on a psychological scale. the intensity is a lot different, but the design of it itself is no different. It's just spread out a little bit more, and it goes straight into generations, straight into our children. Um, so it's really up to us to see how individually it's inside, that how these complexes are inside of us in order to adjust what is outside of us. We have to see